of the big stumbling blocks we face as a species is we're buying into a faulty operating system. We look out at the world and we know it's a mess, or at least the part that we're playing in the world. And then we could ask, oh, how is this? Why would it be like this? You know, if human beings are of the earth, why do they seem to be such a divided species where some seem to be called to service, to love, to making the world a better place, and then others seem to wantonly want to destroy it? It's almost like there's something in the software that isn't quite right, you know? And so then the ancients would say that man has forgotten that he is God. In other words, a creator, a custodian of this universe, not just this planet. But that's big thinking, so let's try and keep it rational and, you know, what we can understand. So Christ spoke about us being the image and likeness of the divine. So it seems to me, if we look back at this first statement, that we have the ability to be the image and likeness of a swine. What I mean by that is the image of likeness of the worst aspects of the human nature, and we could call that demonic. Or we could say that we have the capabilities, the capacity to be the image and likeness of something incredible. And I guess they're the people we call saints, Buddhas, enlightened beings. And maybe that's the journey that we're all on. We're paving a pathway in one of those directions. And so how spirituality helps with that is that it gives us a set of tools to first acknowledge that there's something wrong in our software. Now we could debate and philosophize about what that is and why it's there. You know, some people say it's our DNA was hacked. But, you know, all that really matters is what we can see and perceive. And what we can see and perceive is that if we really look inside our hearts, inside our beings, that we have something that just is destructive, hateful. It's a kind of a separating energy into good and bad, and I'm good, of course, and you're bad, of course, if you would disagree with my idea of goodness. So these great beings, they seem to be born in this dimension. Somehow they're born with a level of wakefulness. And they tell us not only are we not who we think that we are, in other words, the computer program that's been installed into us, they tell us that we're actually divine. We're these souls. We're pure consciousness, divine consciousness, that we have this Buddha nature, this inner Christ or Christic guidance system, that we are the image and likeness of something that isn't destructive, but is actually incredibly loving and incredibly beautiful. And many of us, they kind of leave footprints in the sand for us to follow, leading us back into that pure state, original innocence, you know, Tao. And so those footprints in the sand, when we first start the spiritual journey, they look like behavioral, behavior modification. But this is only the outer shell, which is why first many traditions, they start by studying scripture. Some people never get past that. So their understanding of the spiritual is very, on a psychological level, very cognitive. But this is a very shallow interpretation, and still people who really study that on the whole, they still fall out, whose interpretation of those teachings is right, whose book is the best. That's very shallow level of spirituality and understanding. And then you have those who are drawn into a deeper mystical understanding of those teachings, not happy with just studying a book. And so they're drawn to deeper contemplative practices, what Lao Tzu calls constant contemplation. What has been pointed to in the Bible as prayer without ceasing. Now, prayer without ceasing, do we really think we're just nattering the whole time, babbling on to some divine being? That's pretty insane. There's no peace there. So prayer without ceasing must mean something other than constantly asking from a place of not completeness. And so some people are drawn into deeper philosophies or the need to understand. And those people, the mystics, they usually come back with a similar message. And the message is along the lines of, the mind is the problem. The programming within the mind, even the heart, which we could call the emotions, which starts to take us deeper than thought into feeling and sensation. There's something in here that isn't of God, isn't of the divine, a very disruptive self. And so you've got one bunch of people that are at battle on a cognitive and a thought level with that sense of self, trying to input more data against the data that's already been installed in their upbringing. So there's constant battle. But then there's some people that they go deeper than that through 40 days and 40 nights in the desert, through Vipassana, through whatever technique is used to be with the mind, but in stillness, and to study it. They discover there's another operating system in us all, but it's buried deeper. It's buried deeper than thinking and feeling. And so they start to see that there is this peace that is God within us, that a peace that transcends, is beyond understanding. Now look at ancient language. They didn't really have thinking and mind. So they called it understanding. That means beyond thought, beyond thinking, beyond mind. That's where God is, or that's where the experience of God is as a transcendental peace, a peace beyond, And then it's interesting because the Buddhist Heart Sutra is Gate Gate, Paragate, Paramagate, Bodhiswaha, as in beyond, the great beyond. The real mind appears, the divine mind, the light mind, enlightenment, the Buddha mind. So to know what we could call the will of God, Tao, It requires us to go beyond our rationality, beyond everything that we think that we know, beyond even who we believe ourselves to be, which is the faulty operating system of hatred, division, as it was called, Garden of Eden, the knowledge of good and evil, duality.